just to start things off, like in 30 to 60 seconds, how would you describe it is that what you do?
Well, I'm Blake Gordey, and basically, what I do is work in the film industry, and it's a bunch of different capacities. So I originally lived in Calgary and got into film there out of high school, and then made the move to Toronto after I met a couple people that were from Toronto that I went to Calgary to go film a show called Property Brothers, which was this HGTV show. And they said you got to come to Toronto because that's where everything is. And so I raced over here, and it's been pretty fruitful in terms of density and volume of work and that sort of thing. And for me, it's been just a lot of fun to do something that, in general, most of the time, I enjoy. And so I mostly work in crew stuff with camera and some specialty stuff and some specialty equipment in camera. Slowly kind of dipping into a little bit more responsibility with cinematography and ultimately trying to reach that directing echelon of stuff, because what mostly interests me more than the gear and the cameras and stuff like that, which is always an interest of mine, is just the story. Just like there's just that's where I think the rock bottom lies of all the film industry stuff is what people are watching and why, and that
Yeah.
comes down to the stories and what's engaging to people. And so that's kind of been my life, and that's been my focus, trying to dial down exactly what I need to do to get to that place that I want to be in. But for now, it's just having fun every day on set.
Yeah.
So would you call yourself a freelancer? Like, would you be like a freelance creative, or how does? Because I know film industry's got unions, which I don't fully understand.
Yeah.
But what would you fall under?
Well, I'll tell you something. I'm a part of one of the unions of the camera thing, and I don't even understand it. So, and honestly, when I talk to people that do even a fair bit of union work, I'm not even fully sure that they understand what it is. And but I would call myself a freelancer in that it's kind of you're going from job to job. It's I happen to do a fair bit of work with one company that they have a high volume, and I keep getting called back to go and join them and work with them. But it's all over the map. And honestly, I'm trying to branch out, like to diversify, because sometimes that company has a lull and then I have to have a lull, and then I only know the people inside that circle. And so the networking thing is another thing that I think I've gotten a little bit better at over the years. I've tried to diversify. There's other companies that are like them that make these sorts of television movies or things that go to the States and stuff like that. And so it's all over the place. Really, it's the best of times, because you when things are fruitful, you get to pick your own work, pick the people that you want to work with, and decide if you want to do something or not. Or it's the worst of times when there's nothing that you can find, and it's all comes down to you, how much you want to work or don't want to work. And it's the best part and the worst part, because if I need a vacation, I can say I'm just not going to do this, and they'll say please come work, and I'll say sorry, next time. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's helpful. So before we get into like the real stuff, we like to do a little rapid fire questions, get things moving.
All
So,
right, I'll try to
what is
be
your
try to be rapid.
yeah, what's your favorite movie?
Oh man, I don't know. So many.
You
It's
say
funny.
top three because it's tough.
Well, I can give a movie that is kind of my canned answer for that, and that would be Forrest Gump, because the new thing that I usually ask people is, instead of what's your favorite, because people are like, oh, if I'm in the mood, this, I'll ask them, what's the movie you've seen the most? Because that is telling of another thing, and I think it's telling of the nugget of what people mean by when they get that question. It's just like something you'll always return to. If it's on TV, you'll stop and you'll watch it, and that's always Forrest Gump, because I think it was on TV so much, and it's just ingrained in my brain for whatever reason. It just sticks with me for a multitude of reasons, the historical, the other stuff. But rapid fire, next question.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. What's the movie? I don't even know what movie I've seen the most. I think oddly I've watched Dune 2 a lot. And I know it's a new
Really?
movie, but yeah, and it's really
Wow.
long. But I do like that movie a lot. I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah.
Taylor, what movie do you watch the most?
Jurassic Park for sure. I watched that quite a
Whoa.
bit as a kid. That was my go-to.
Yeah. A lot
Okay.
of the times I find it's subject to what was available. Like the other movie I watched was like Happy Gilmore, and that's just because my grandma had a VHS of it that was like
Yeah.
taped from TV, that I just thought was the only thing in her place. So I watched that a lot.
Yeah. Okay, well now what's a movie that you really like that isn't like widely known? That like if you had to recommend one to people of like here's like a sneaky good movie.
I can make this recommendation only based on like it's something that I think captures my like a perfect blend of my taste in terms of there's on one end of the spectrum something that's very consumable, and the other end of the spectrum something that's full art. Like in film school, they showed us this film that was literally just scratches on a film strip, and they just rolled it for us. It was the most ridiculous moment of film school, but like that's one end of the spectrum in terms of just pure artistic expression and
Yeah.
nonsense. And the other end of the spectrum, is Avengers 2. And
Yeah.
so like somewhere where I like really hits the sweet spot for me and I love it is this movie called Enemy with Jake Gyllenhaal. It's something that people kind of know about. It was actually shot here in Toronto. It was shot by Denis Villeneuve, the guy who then went on to make Dune and Dune
Yeah.
2. But it was kind of an earlier stage of him coming up the ranks, and it's a weird movie. It's odd. It's kind of scary, but it's not really scary. It raises a whole bunch of questions and then rips all those questions out with the ending. And I don't know, it's art, but it's also more consumable, I would say. So something that always
Yeah.
stuck with me.
Nice. I'm all in. I love any Denis Villeneuve, but I haven't seen that one. So
Oh
let's
yeah,
do it.
that's a weird one.
Do you have a book that has changed your life or one that you go back to often?
Oh man, I don't know if this is a good thing to say or a bad thing to say, but when it comes to books, I really haven't read any.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just like, for some reason, I mean, maybe I was an early version of an iPad kid where it just like, I just hated reading. I hated all the reading assignments in
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
I would way rather be watching TV, and for better or for worse, it became my life. So books that really stuck with me, I don't know. That there was one point I remember in the second grade when I found a Harry Potter book on the ground, and I lifted it up and I started reading. I was like, oh, this is the first time I've been engaged reading, and I was
Yeah.
reading during the reading time. And then about 5 minutes later, a kid came up and said, "Hey, that's my book. I dropped it," and then swiped it out of my hands. And then that was the last time I ever enjoyed reading.
You read a little bit of when you stole kids' books.
It's
No,
like,
I
oh,
mean
well,
that.
I guess that's it.
Yeah, yeah. That's totally fair. That was a trick question. We were just finding out if you were cool or not, or a nerd, and you don't read, so you're cool. No one
Yeah,
can get it.
wasting time.
Yeah,
Not a
yeah,
nerd.
exactly. Yeah. Strictly no nerd podcast. If you got a $20,000 grant, what would you do with it?
It's a good question because I I fantasize about winning some sort of lottery every day and how I would spend
Yeah,
it. When it comes to like thinking about how I would use it in terms of a business or at this point in the career, advancing it, I'm getting hungry to make my own thing. And when the last time made a short film was, I think I finished it a year and a half ago, and the biggest thing I learned is that even though I've stacked up a great network of people and I've done people a ton of favors with doing their own stuff and called in those favors to do this thing, but basically people working for free, it still cost me $5,000 just to have food there every day for people, have a few props, and like hire some people that I didn't know, which are like actors and stuff like that. And by the end, it just all those costs popped up. Now it's just such a resource intensive medium, and that's a lot of the time that's the big barrier for people that want to be directors. Like, yeah, I want to do this, I want to shoot this thing. And so you'll design a script around what's easiest to shoot. But what I've learned from going to film festivals is that shows up on screen. It shows up, yeah, that was the easiest thing to shoot. But when you have a scene where there's a ton of background or something special that filmmakers know is hard to accomplish, it sticks out to the filmmakers, and that's who the people are that you're actually
yeah,
trying to impress at the film festivals. And so I think I would burn it, even though if you'd asked me 6 months ago, I'd probably be way more conservative and say, no, I'd invest in something to get more income with the day job of being a crew member and then maybe build up some income to fund my own thing. At this point in time, I'm getting a little bit desperate. I would burn it all on making a short film, something that has the production value associated with that. It would still be a lot of favors coming in because 20K would not be that much of an accomplishment. But
yeah,
at this point, I need that calling card. I need things under my belt for this to get into this director echelon. So that's probably where I would burn it right now.
yeah. Nice.
Try not to
So
think about it too hard.
yeah, when it's time to get work done, how do you lock in? Like, do you have a process to just start cranking away at stuff?
Uh, the lock in, a lot of different strategies that have been tried and failed over the years, but the one that is seeming to work is to just get away from this phone addiction that I seem to have, and either put the phone away and go on the laptop, which seems to help because it's just harder to get to a scrolling website there. The scroll lock is what seems to be the problem. And also, like, in terms of motivating, sometimes you just get distracted with the phone. And so going for a walk, I'm generally not on the phone when I'm on a walk. And that's where I start to brew ideas, start to brew inspiration. Then it
Yeah.
doesn't take very long on the walk, sometimes 5 minutes just to go get a coffee and come back. And I'm racing to get back upstairs to write something down or do the next thing or start shopping or start making a plan or an outline for either a project or the next investment that I want to make for just making money in the day job, whether it's equipment or something like that, or researching something. So usually it comes with just getting rid of distraction. It'd be the simplest way to boil it down.
Yeah. And how do you lock out, like when you've been working too much and you got to take your mind off things? Like, what do you do to, you know, get out of the
If,
zone?
if there's one skill I have, it's got to be getting out of the zone. It's
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
comes pretty naturally to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long. Like I said, just like I love working in movies because a lot of the time it's full of people that it's the furthest thing from a day job to them. It's they had some sort of a passion that they had for movies or an interest in it, and they stumbled into a skill that they could accomplish while making money in the movie industry. And so it's full of people that love movies. So I tend to have a really good time there. And I forgot the original question. What was this?
Oh yeah, like I guess if you're like working a lot, you've got a project that's like
Oh,
taking over your life.
locking
Yeah.
out. So, yeah, I really don't seem to have a problem with it. Like I love
Yeah.
movies, love being in movies. And then so when it comes to sitting at home, I can pretty easily get distracted with the show. There's like a ginormous list of people that I work with that you got to watch this, you got to watch this because of this. Please watch this, get to season 2 of this, then we can talk. And so it's just a massive list, and there's so much content out there now. I don't even know how to begin organizing it. So a lot of times I'm watching old shows because it feels like it's a refreshing thing. So lots of different strategies to get out of the work zone, but a lot of times because I don't feel like I need to get out of the zone, especially if I'm working, a full long show of stuff with people that I like and it's enjoyable. Then I've never really felt that burnout point to an
Yeah.
extent because going to work is actually kind of fun most of the time.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, that's kind of the rapid fire, which I feel like we didn't get too rapid fire, but that's good.
Yeah.
We were getting into it. But so I think it's helpful to like get a little context of like how you got into this field. So where did you grow up, and did you have anyone in your family or network or anything that was like in film that like inspired you or helped show you the way to sort of get into it?
Well, I grew up in Calgary, Alberta, for the most part. Spent quite a few summers up in a far north town of Peace River, which is just a mostly rural area. And there was nobody in my family in film. Nobody really even that had any sort of like a creative skill. Where like I can't think of anybody that played an instrument or painted. Really, everybody just kind of went about their day job, and so there wasn't really anybody in film, but I definitely grew up watching movies. I watched a lot of movies with my dad. I think he's another movie lover. He consumes more stuff than I ever did, I think.
Yeah.
Even now, especially in retirement, he's just watching stuff like crazy. There's nonstop shows, things I've never heard of. And so that would be there's nobody really to give me some sort of boost. It was me going to film school, I would say. But I did have the encouragement of my parents that they never skipped a beat on that. They said, oh, if you're interested, do it. There seems to be an industry. There was at least half an industry in Calgary, and I was kind of more motivated because there's always people with a raised eyebrow looking at the film industry, seeing if that's a real career. I associate it with being like my nephews saying that they want to be a YouTuber. It's just like, is that a
Yeah.
real job? It's kind of is now, almost, where it's just like there's a lot of people that are YouTubers, but it sounds goofy at the start, but there is an
Yeah.
industry out there.
And was that something you just like knew early on, like that you wanted to go to film school? Like, was it ever a battle internally to do something like perhaps that's like, I don't know, like you said, more conventional, like go do accounting
Yeah.
or something, or you just were always locked in on like, I want to be in film?
I definitely always wanted to be in film, and probably the main reason was because nobody was saying no to me. There wasn't anybody saying, "Ooh, I don't know about that. Maybe you should think about something else. And if you really want to do film, then you should really try it." My parents, in hindsight, were probably more chill about it than I would be if I had a kid today and be like, okay, well, you know, it just sounds like, because sometimes I feel like to me it would sound like a 5-year-old saying he wants to be a firefighter. It's just like, it's almost like a fantasy thing where like,
Yeah.
that's what, it's not a real thing. You don't really understand the inner workings of what it takes to be a firefighter. So I was always interested in it. I think the main kind of turning point was in junior high when there was a film class elective in the 7th grade. There was that the school was kind of like, had a really great drama teacher that also had a film class there. And like, we learned some terminology, learned some basics. And I met 2 really close friends that are still pretty close today that were like, oh, we love this. We love making movies. And we started taking handy cams. And this is the story of so many people in the industry now that started making their own movies with their friends, making stuff. Then that's like the dawn of YouTube, 2007. And people were posting their comedic skits online. And we started to do that too. And so you kind of got your own little film school where just our friends making the movies. And it was just so much fun doing that. And you're like, oh, how could people making money doing this as adults? This sounds pretty good. It's not quite that straightforward, but it a lot of times it is. Like if you pick the right people to work with, it can be it's almost a perfect reflection of what it used to be.
So what is film school for people who don't know? Like, is it studying film, or are you doing things like writing, technical skills as well?
My understanding is it can be different depending on where you go. Like one of the close friends I mentioned, he went to a full 1-year program at Vancouver Film School, which is a really well-known film school, well organized, well marketed to people. And it was just 1 full year, 12 months film school. You kind of pick a stream, directing. I think there's a school for acting there and different things like that. And so it's much more focused on, especially in the British Columbia industry, there's a lot of different shows. They have great tax incentives for US shows that go there, and it's getting out of the school and you can find a job right away. They teach you all the skills to basically find a job in the industry, just like a perfect trade school. I stayed in Calgary and did a 4-year thing where it was 2 years at the University of Calgary, which was all theory, and then 2 years at the technical school, SAIT, that did practical production. And the theory stuff, that's where I saw the scratches on the film thing. And sometimes it just went a little too far for my taste. They're just like, is this real? Is this what we're really learning? I'm paying for this sort of education. It got a little goofy. But to be honest, like the more interesting things to me were the things that were like the psychology classes, the sociology classes, the communications and culture classes that taught you kind of a broad base teachings on just, North American culture. And I think like that stuff related more to thinking about being a filmmaker and thinking about what stories are important, and more than the study of the 1950s Hollywood era class that we took or different things that we took. So there's that. And then the practical side was it was back to making movies. That's where you learned. There was a writing class, so you learned to write. There was a directing stream and then a tech stream. I ended up, even though I had a passion for the directing, there was a tech stream that had a better teacher and he was kind of more fun. And also I wanted to make sure I had a job out of school just to prove any haters that were in the distant parts of the family that I wasn't just going to just waste my life away just chasing some film dream. So right out of school, got some jobs on the tech side of things with camera and stuff like that. And so they taught you just the full spectrum of everything. There was written tests and talks about producing, and we had a small budget to manage for the final projects in the year. And we voted on we learned to pitch. We pitched to the class what projects were going to get made and stuff like that. And so it was a pretty full, intensive learning about all the aspects. You get a little bit of taste, and then you could, focus on your own stream as you move forward.
Yeah. So when you go through film school and then you graduate, is it like, it sounds like you sort of went the tech side, which by the sounds of it was like a little safer, I guess, or more consistent. Like,
yeah.
So when you do that, are you getting a job at like a company and it's like a 9 to 5 and you've got like a consistent salary, or is it still like you get that job, but you have to go like find projects to work on? Like, what's it like when you're officially graduating and working in the industry?
Well, for me, my journey did kind of start in a 9 to 5 way because as school was coming to a close, a lot of people were worried about jobs, and someone that I was friends with in film school reached out to get a job at a company that I guess used to be called William F. White, and they're across Canada, a film rental company, and they had a station in Calgary, and he reached out to work for their gear rental house. And I thought that was a pretty good idea too. So I basically did the same thing, but more in a part-time capacity, where they kind of go up and down with, a big show comes in and they need to get all the gear ready, and then they leave, and they're shooting, and it's not as big of a deal. You don't have to manage as much gear. And then when it all comes back, it's a big thing to sort it all out and stuff like that. So I was on kind of a floating basis, which one allowed me to get a further film education with all the gear, and then also meet people that were tech people coming in and out for gear returns, be a familiar face to them, and then kind of network a little bit and be able to help them with other projects when I wasn't working at this film rental house. And so I started creeping in that way, got to know some people at film school that also went different directions with different jobs, or they had met other people in the industry through their journey and invited me to come and work on that set. Started really, the only reason I fell into camera was because on the film set, the camera people are responsible for monitoring. So what you can see, the image, the director can see what's going on. They sit in a chair, they look at it, and that's what I wanted to look at. I wanted to watch TV, so that's what I went back to that. I wanted to see what the screen was. I wanted to be close to the action. Or if you're anybody else, you're often sitting at a truck offset, waiting for someone to call your name to bring in something. But the camera people are right there, filming with the actors, communicating with the director. And so that felt like it was really in the heart of the action. And so that's kind of why I fell into it. As I started to get to know people, did a good enough job to get called back for the next movie. Then I had a little resume. Then I interview for the Property Brothers show, and then I get that. Then I have a big thing on my resume, and then leveraged that into when I came here to Toronto to basically getting entangled with a company that basically makes Christmas movies year round. So they keep me pretty busy, but that's the story.
Yeah. So, okay. So then,
No, I was just going to ask, so like when you're falling into the camera stuff, where you just sort of like, I want to do this, I volunteer, get a little bit of extra, sorry, I got background noise here. Were you just kind of taking initiative and trying to do it, and then people were seeing, oh, you're putting effort in and we like what you're doing? Like, how did you get that initial sort of traction to show people that they can trust you to actually operate these cameras and help them out?
Definitely. I think I don't know if someone told me this or it was just something that I just did, but also because I was extra hungry for stuff here. Out of film school, wanted to prove people wrong, but doing stuff for free was a super good lever to pull. Where if you get too hung up on getting paid out of film school, I think that was a trap that some people fell into. But I was just interested in doing stuff. Like, I wanted to build up a skill set of stuff so that I could be valuable, so that I could be invited back. And so there was lots of people that were making their short film, just like I eventually did, that just needed a body, needed somebody there that would, was to move some stuff around for them. And so there was a ton of that. There's like a special skill in the camera world called focus pulling. And I did a lot of that for free before I ever did anybody to pay, because nobody would pay for my level of skill set because I sucked at the start. But
What is
showing up
focus
for
pulling?
free. Focus pulling is on the camera. There's the lens, and unlike iPhones or even a lot of photo cameras, they have autofocus features. It's usually all manual, and the reason is because you often want to make unusual choices that aren't so obvious when you're touching a screen on a consumer camera, or if you just want to focus on a subject that's walking towards you, it'll usually track it fine. But often in the movie world, you're going up from someone's face, and then they're slowly bringing something in front of their face, and you want to slowly react to that. But the computer doesn't know if you want to stay on their eyes or if you want to stay in this. There's all these creative choices you can make with focus. And so it's usually done by someone that is on a wheel, on a monitor, wirelessly performing it, these days anyway, and changing the focus so that it's creatively matches what you want to do. And so it is a little skill set thing. It's something that often goes unnoticed until you screw up. Then people get mad at you pretty quickly when you can't perform under. Sometimes it's a one take thing, or we're losing light, we just got to go. You can't practice. Just if you have an intuition
Have
for
you
it.
have you ever messed up a shot, or like had anything go wrong on the fly like that?
Me, no, I'm perfect. No, of course. But usually, like, you get better at not screwing up. So like it. it's so rare that they give you like a lot of practice runs with it now. So you find ways to get in your practice by, watching what the actors are doing in the scene. And before you're rolling, you'll get somebody else. So like, you see what they did? They walked from there to there. Can you do that for me? And then we'll just, you find ways to get your own little practice in so that when people watch you actually do it for the first time, they say, oh, he just magically knows how to do it. But you got to kind of cheat and get your practices in there and you kind of learn the way to do it. Did I ever ruin anything so bad? I mean, kind of not really, because a lot of the times it can get forgiven. You know what I mean? Like if you are losing light, you only had one shot, and you barely showed up, and you didn't even see what the actor was supposed to be doing. You're just winging it. Sometimes it's an opportunity to look like a hero, but if you fall short, people understand. It's not that big of a deal. But don't fall short too many times, or you're out.
Yeah. And so coming out of film school, so again, you went into the camera work and then you went into movies, but is it a pretty common path too to do like commercial video production where you're just working for like, filming commercials or things like that? That's like more, I guess, business and less like creative.
There's just such a wide range of what someone might call a film job out there. And a lot of it has come down to, in my opinion, the advent of ubiquitous film technology, and so many people became amateur photographers in the mid 2010s and stuff like that, as the technology became more accessible, cheaper, and the technology got better, where a small camera would output stuff that looked really cinematic and stuff like that. And so it's some of the skills transfer to bigger things and stuff like that, just knowledge about things, but a lot of it, I think the barriers of people like going from doing an interview for a business of a CEO talking about a product or something like that to making a cinematic Netflix film. A lot of those barriers, in my opinion, are just like cultural, like within the industry. People hold cinema to this special standard. And it used to be that TV was so much lower than that, but now TV's become this cinematic thing where people would kill to work on some, new Breaking Bad or something like that. Like that would be way more valuable to them than making a movie with some legendary filmmaker even. So it's things have equalized. The culture is changing a little bit, but the skills I think are all the same. And like even like looking at how my nephews interact with video technology, like they know how to film stuff, they know how to pan, point, like they pretend to be a YouTuber all the time. And the YouTubers have to be knowledgeable with film and audio. They're running their own documentary, one-man band a lot of the time, that that are on the high quality end of the spectrum. And people appreciate quality, I think, subconsciously a lot of the time. And so it's interesting how the worlds collide. The barriers are cultural, but when it comes to like commercials and stuff, I've done some commercials, and they're usually a slower paced thing than a lot of the shows and stuff like that. So there's a bunch of different worlds. They're all kind of pocketed with special people. Some skills transfer over, but it's kind of a weird thing that the way that people see a commercial that are within the industry, and they can fool themselves into thinking that one's more important or better than the other. But it's all just cameras at the end of the day, people, actors, story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So are you using like portfolios, or is it more resume based for like proving if someone's capable of doing a job when you get hired? Like how much of this is like, here's a portfolio of work that I can show you what I've done, and how much is more like, here's your resume and people that referred you?
Yeah, it depends really. Like the director thing, I'm really learning that it has to be portfolio based. Like and honestly, the portfolio doesn't even need to be good. Like the portfolio, there's so many people that have come through. The portfolio is, have you done something? Because it's so resource intensive, whatever you need to do, if you need to borrow from your rich parents, do it and you get a portfolio. If you need to work 3 other jobs to build up money to pay for it, if you need to scam somebody out of the money, nobody cares how you get the money to make. They only care about, do you have something? That's it. That is the only thing. Like there's so many people that have come through directing roles that I'm sitting there looking like, do these guys have any clue what they're doing? The answer a lot of the time is no. And a lot of times they suck. But what they did was punch their way through a place where they got something done. They have a completed project or 2 or 3. And that is actually what people are looking for, because making a movie is tough when you're a director. You have to kind of like steamroll your way through a lot of these things. And so that's actually the main skill set. And then beyond portfolio and resume stuff, like if I'm hiring people for a camera team, you always are going to take a recommendation before you look at any resumes. You'll take anybody that says this guy's good. Doesn't matter what, you don't know if they worked on anything before, but this guy's got what it takes. They got the right attitude. That's usually the number one thing. Then that you'll take that over a resume full of stuff any day, because you don't know. You just never want to work with a jerk these long days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I do wonder too, like the director thing you're talking about is so much of it is like proof that it's not just the creative, it's not just the story. You've also got to coordinate and manage all these things. It's almost like managing a business in the sense of like there's a lot of moving parts. So yeah, I'm wondering if maybe that's part of it. But yeah, it's very interesting. That's just like we want to see that you got something over the finish line.
Yeah, the finish line is all that matters. That's really what I'm learning. It really doesn't matter if you made one skillful thing, like that's like a 30-second thing, like, oh, that might show some inkling of an artistic. It's just like the engine of a feature film, and this being, at minimum like a 15-day thing, that is a whole bunch of resources to manage. If there's anything that's at all complicated in it, it becomes 10 times. Like in this movie that I'm doing right now, like we introduced a car, like a couple scenes of people driving a car. It just explodes the the amount of work that it has to do. Is like, oh, they got to be in this car. They got to talk. The weather's got to be right. The time of day is got to be right. You can't control any lights. It just becomes a whole thing immediately. And so, like, punching through that finish line, that's really the main lesson that needs to be learned. And I'm trying to learn it, but it's tough.
So, and as a camera operator, I imagine like, because especially when you're working with another director, they probably have their vision for how it's shot. But I imagine there's like probably, a certain skill set that different camera operators have opposed to other ones, like how they shoot it. Like I know that's what they always talk about, like Denis Villeneuve, like shoots his movies so well. So like, how do you work on that where it's like you're kind of developing your own skill, your own viewpoint, how you shoot, but at the same time, like you're working for this other director. So is that like a balance where it's like kind of like putting your own flair on it, or do you just have to totally go with like what the director wants?
It's a lot of directors are different, and one thing that's for sure is that there's just no one way to make a movie, and there's no right way. Even when you hear the stories of the super famous directors, I think a lot of the times the headline making ones like a Denis Villeneuve or like a James Cameron are like, they exercise a degree of control over stuff that a lot of people don't. And sometimes that's an interesting thing, where just like to be able to sit there and control the camera and pan left and stuff like that. Like they have a lot of times they might not have a specific vision, but they have a feeling. Like when they're in it, they're in the movie, they're in the scene. They maybe they just like making movies. Who knows the full details on that? But day to day, I would say that this is true for just a lot of the things that shoot, is that the camera operator has developed a certain set of skills of a certain standard that kind of fills in the gaps of like directors. A lot of times the people are there to take things off their plates. If it's a good crew and it's a good director, they're like, I need to feel the intensity on this one. And then the camera operator will fill in the gaps of what they might mean by intensity. And it helps if they know the script and they know the show and they've been on it for a while and they know this director and they kind of know his style. And you kind of learn those things just through developing relationships when you first meet them and stuff like that. Like intensity might mean a push in, you're really pushing in on them, or it might mean a low angle or something like that. You'll start to try stuff out. And a lot of times if you get a good relationship going, the director is going to praise you. They're like, oh, that's exactly what I needed. I didn't even know I needed it, and you showed it to me, and that's exactly what I needed. Or sometimes it'll be back and forth. That's not quite it. It's the same way that the director will work with the actors to flush out a scene of what they're supposed to be doing. Does it mean more if they stand or sit at this moment and stuff like that? You're always kind of flushing out the details of stuff, because you can have all this prep, you can read the words on the paper. Things just are always so different when you actually get there with everybody, and it's being the director is this constant problem solving thing where it's like, this isn't right. What should I do to fix it? Let's try this. And so I think it's the same for camera operating. Camera operating, sometimes there are very specific things like, okay, I have a vision for the opening shot. We start here, we move in here, da, da, da. But for day-to-day conversations, people in a room talking, the camera operators, I think, are filling in a lot of those gaps. And that's a skill set that you learn, in my opinion, from watching movies. And so like you really just the people that suck at it, or the people that suck at the focus pulling intuition, I just feel like sometimes I'm saying to myself, have they never seen a movie? Like, this person is discovering this item, they're lifting it up in front of their face. How can you not focus on that? It just makes
Yeah.
sense to me. And so I think it's a skill set of like being in the scene. If you're just thinking about moving it and worrying about the timing of when you're gonna focus pull this, you're out of the scene. You're not doing your job right. But that's just
Yeah.
my opinion.
So a lot of it is like what I'm hearing is like you're just saying like building that taste or intuition is like here I have a point of view and I understand because I've consumed this like in a way by watching your training. It's like watching film for I don't know a quarterback. So
Yeah, I think so. Like, you gotta love it, and you gotta be not scared of it. The people that think of the job, even if it's a lower position on a film set, if they think of it too much like a job, I think it's a recipe to do something bad, because everybody's there to make something that's just a consumable, fun thing most of the time. And so a lot of times people can lose the vision of that, and that's when people can break down with the long days and stuff like that. But we're most of the time we're just there goofing around making movies. So
Yeah.
one thing I've been dying to ask is like what makes a movie look like a movie? Because like sometimes you'll watch a low budget show and it's like I don't know what it is, but this just looks bad. And then you'll watch
Mhm.
something else and it's like this is
Like
amazing. And I don't know what it is. Like
like
do you
CFL versus NFL. I know what you're talking about. You're like, why does it look different? I don't get it.
Well, I wish I really had the answer, because I ask myself this question all the time. And it's an ongoing debate between me and some other people on movie sets, where just like there's this working theory that I think I subscribe to, and I think it can be like a subconscious thing where it's like, if I put Tom Cruise in front of any camera in any lighting with any sound, it'll just start to feel like a movie, because we've just been conditioned to see Tom Cruise as a cinematic person and all this other stuff. I think that's one part of it. I think that's where, if you're trying to nitpick lighting, well, it's like, oh, well, this is Hollywood lighting, but then you can show me a different movie. I'm like, this isn't Hollywood lighting. This is something completely different. Still feels like a movie. I think that's one element of it, is like there's a lot of celebrities, or the fact that maybe you're watching the NFL, or you're watching the CFL. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes I'm watching a movie with no name actors, and I can feel like I can tell the difference if it's a high budget thing or a low budget thing. It's subconsciously, you'd have to really break down comparable scenes to maybe say, oh, they had an extra shot that was like this, or they had an extra little piece like this. Another thing that has come, this is a continuing debate for, it's been a decade of thinking about this question, is that I learned with making my own short film how much sound impacts the film. I think a lot of the time there's so much going on. There's so many subtle things that are placed into the sound design of a high budget movie or a Hollywood film, or even I think there's a difference between Canadian and American. Uh, there is some sort of a quality that comes to the sound that makes it feel like, oh, this is really leveraged up a bit, because I had on my short film me trying to fill in all the sound design stuff, and then I had somebody do it that was more on the pro side of things, and it made a world of difference. I was like, I feel like I'm watching a Netflix show now, and not just this thing I shot with my friends last week. And so I think sound subtly, subconsciously, I never gave it its due. I always kind of shat on it and said, who cares? It's all about the images. But it actually makes a huge difference. And it's something that everybody's always said, but I never believed until I had to experience it firsthand. But sound and celebrities, that's my current working theory
Yeah.
on that one, where
Yeah.
those subconscious things stick in your mind, where it's hard to pinpoint visually otherwise.
Yeah, the sound makes a lot of sense when you like consider like the music industry as well. Like certain producers, it's like I don't know what it is. I can just tell like they're
Yeah.
better. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but they're probably just doing that little extra level that we can't tell. But the one thing too that makes me think of this is I was watching Yellowstone,
Mm.
and I think so. I enjoyed the first episodes, and the last season I think it was rushed because of the writers' strike and COVID or something. I can't quite remember why, but
Yep.
they rushed shooting. It was so bad. It was just like the
Interesting.
characters. It was the same characters, but they felt like really wooden to me. Like I don't know. It just like was like something's off. Like I don't know what it is, but it's like it's not right.
It's such an interesting thing. And like I have these talks about even just performance. Just forget about all the other things. Just like people can cross over into this threshold of a really strong performance. I think it comes from rehearsal and practice, and also talent a lot of the time. And it's kind of an ill-defined thing, and maybe an acting coach could describe it better. But I think that's where a lot of the quality comes from, and people don't know how to describe it. Sometimes even me, I walk out there saying, it just didn't hit. And I think it could be described as authenticity or making contact with truth, not to get too artsy fartsy with stuff, but like those are the things that I think make something engaging for someone or make people resonate with it. But yeah, it can be hard to describe. I know what you mean. I watch an episode that it just doesn't work. It's something was off, something's on the same page. The vision isn't being executed. They're missing the mark if they had a mark to begin with. Like that's what I think people mean when they say something is bad or not good, is that
Yeah.
they were aiming for something, but it felt like they hit somewhere else. And so there's a mismatch there that they're just not interested in.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So it sounds like, when you started your career, it sounds like there was a bit of like, you're going into the film industry, you kind of like, it was a bit of a leap, you wanted to prove people wrong. And like now, you've had a lot of success as a camera operator, but it sounds like you're trying to transition into, directing. So
Yeah.
I imagine it is quite a different skill set. And you kind of talked about that like directors having a portfolio, which proves you can push through and, get something done. So is it something where like, I don't know, you've got to really like work on a different set of skill set to make that leap to become a director? Is that something you're like, thinking about as you like go in and operate in your job? Or like what's sort of like on your mind, I guess, as you're trying to make the leap from going to, camera operator to directing your own thing?
It's on my mind every single day, especially when I'm on set and especially when I'm meeting new people, because the networking skill is something that I definitely think I lack and want to get better at. It's just easy to just talk to people. I know that most of the time I'm not going to make a fool of myself, and a lot of times I have something to offer people, and sometimes I like helping them out and helping them build their career from some smaller place and stuff like that. And so every day, a lot of the times when I'm connecting with I'm meeting a new director or something like that, I love to hear what their story is and say, what did you do? How many short films did you make before you got to make a feature film? Who was your mentor? What sort of advice did they give you to get to this place right now? And what are you looking to do next? I always love to hear what their own goals are. If they're like, nah, directing, I should have never done this. I should have stayed camera operating. Don't do it. So like a lot of the times I'm looking for other people's journeys to either mimic something or to know an opportunity when I see it, or just like getting that advice. And it ties into the networking thing where like I just can't be afraid to talk to people anymore. I got to ask them questions. And most of the time people are excited about it. Just like how when I go to the networking events, people are excited to hear my story and they're like, oh, well, a camera operator, I would love to do that. What is your journey? And all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And it's so it's easy to offer this advice. And it's just that kind of kindness is free and cheap and makes you feel good to help people climb the whatever sort of ladder that they're personally trying to climb. And so I ask people what their journey is to either mimic it, or if something comes along that is similar to that, I can chase it down. And then also trying to be inspired because the next thing is going to be resource intensive and I want to top what I did last. Saving money, planning about what I can do that would be effective and, have production value, and something that, because it's going to suck out time in my life and maybe even money as I give up jobs to accomplish it, I want to make sure it's something that I'm going to like, or I'm going to be proud of, or I at least have a chance of being proud of, or might be interesting, or might be something that is the step to take you to the next level. The people that are the really successful directors making something that, is personal to them, or something that only they could make, or something that has a little bit of controversy in it, or something like trying to look at other blueprints a lot of the time in terms when I'm just at home researching or when I'm talking to people and figuring out what the next step should be.
For people who are maybe getting started or early on in the journey, like I'm curious if you have like ideas on like how you approach sort of your planning these projects, because there's a lot of things that go in. There's the storytelling element, there's the technical side, there's the coordinating. Do you start with mood boards? Do you just start by writing ideas? Like what's your process for your creative process for making something from an idea to reality?
I think the smartest thing to do, and I'm not sure, I'm probably guilty of not doing this all the time, is starting with an idea that you find interesting. Like it has to start with the idea. It has to start on that page. a lot of the times I can't help myself because I think I have a logician mindset where I start thinking, well, not just any old idea, something that I can do, like something that's not going to cost a lot of money, something that I can shoot here today in this apartment. But like that sort of thing eats away at the creativity where it's just like, now I have an idea I'm not so in love with anymore. I think the the new strategy that I'm trying to implement is have an idea that I like and find the nugget of that idea. Make sure I hold on to that nugget and then wrap something around it that's doable. But like to try to like shift the idea into something that I can shoot now, or that's the easiest possible thing to shoot, or the thing that will have just one cool shot in it. I think that's how I used to think, and that's has put a whole bunch of barriers in terms of me having the energy to go and try to punch through something. But if I have an idea or something I want to communicate, that has been a much more inspiring thing for me in terms of thinking, okay, this is what I should be doing. This is the next step. And then building up from there, from a practical standpoint, especially on the last short that I did, it was just uh, just budgeting. Not only budgeting for just the financial side of it, but resource budgeting in terms of, okay, how many people do I really need on this thing to help me? If I have 3 good people versus 5 schlubs that I don't even know coming out, like how many people do I really need to accomplish what I think this script should be? And so being careful who I'm picking to come out and like dialing in, like building up this bank of favors that people owed me really helped as well. And so there's like a little bit of just like resource planning in terms of that stuff that I think is the next thing. Like, okay, I need this, and just writing down all the props that you need. It's basically, I've never done a proper version of it, but it's what we learned in film school to be like a script breakdown. You have your script, you love it, it's shootable, and you break down everything that you're going to need. So all the people that are going to be involved, the actors, the costumes, and then you can break it up from there. Where am I going to get those costumes? Where am I going to get those props? Who's going to manage them? Can I put it all in my vehicle? Do I need to bring in somebody else for that? And so it kind of breaks down into those sectors of the film industry where there's camera, there's lighting, there's props, there's wardrobe, there's makeup. And so you can break it off into those things to make it microdosing of managing some things. And that's how I was able to do it mostly kicking that stuff off by myself. And then I brought in a really close friend producer that helped manage all the emails that ensued after kicking all those things forward. And that was a huge help. So
yeah,
having friends.
that's a really interesting point, because I do think we see that as a common thread of like, often people don't dream big enough.
Yeah.
But there's the danger of biting off more than you can chew. And so what I'm hearing is like the way that you do it is like you have that motivation of here's the big dream, but then you break it up into like small chunks and then prioritize those basically. So yeah, I think
that
that's
definitely
really
helped.
Yeah, that's really good. For people who just want to get started, since you have obviously knowledge on cameras, what would you recommend is a good lower budget cameras for people? Is there anything that people any advice?
I just had this question asked me by a young whippersnapper who is 19 years old and working with me. He's like, I'm making money now. I want to buy a camera. What should I buy? And honestly, there's just so many cameras out there that are so good. Even dialing back the clock 10 years ago, I think a lot of times they're indistinguishable to people if you're just putting them on a TV. No one would ever know that you're using a $2,000 versus a $100,000 camera. So I recommend to people that if you're looking to get into film and you're thinking, okay, I want to learn about cameras and that sort of thing, I would take whatever money you think you want to spend on a camera and put it into lenses, because lenses are a really big part of the image that people don't really think about. You think of this camera as this one unit thing, but the lenses actually make a lot of the difference in terms of what you're seeing when you see something that you can obviously see was shot on an iPhone versus not shot on an iPhone. It's the depth of field and a bunch of different other factors that are created by the lens. And so of this kid that asked me that, I said, get 2 different lenses. These are the ones you should get. And then get like a $500 Sony A6000 camera or something like that. Any old thing that you can YouTube and recommend that will be sub $1,000, like guaranteed. You'll get a really great camera that will shoot really good stuff. But the lenses are actually what makes the difference in terms of getting a really, zoomed in shot, a really wide shot, or really this and cinematic looking stuff. And you can really start to learn about what lenses do, which is actually way more important than the actual camera side of things, which is just focusing on data and color and a couple other things that often you can manipulate anyway in other programs and stuff in post. So
What's your opinion on smartphones? Because I know they've been pushing them as like these are going to be like replacements for some of these, or using them as like even on movie sets is kind of what we see in ads. Is that like reasonable, or is that like just completely marketing at this moment?
I haven't come up with a word for this theory that I have, but I once dreamed of a world where cameras kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. But the reality is, cameras will always be the same size because it'll always be whatever we can tolerate to carry around. And as you, oh, well, we can make this camera smaller. Well, that means we can make an even bigger camera that's back to the same size. So it'll always kind of be that way. I think a lot of the iPhone stuff that you see is more marketing towards the phones having really good quality stuff, such good quality that they're going to use it in the new Brad Pitt F1 movie. They're going to use it in this, or they're going to use it in the commercials that they make. That's how good a quality they are. And honestly, they're amazingly good quality. A lot of it is done in post-processing stuff. This is my understanding, I think, where they will kind of fix up the image after you take it. But who cares? They honestly look so good a lot of the time. And I don't know what the need is. I don't fully understand it, but this push towards making video better, I don't know what we're racing towards a lot of times. Some people argue and like we should be shooting film, we should be taking steps back, we're wasting our time here. But I like this push to see where exactly it's going to take us, because it's interesting. And I don't really know why we're doing it. We're always trying to get as close as we can to the human eye, which I supposedly we still have not gotten to that point yet in terms of dynamic range and how much you can see in the light part of the room versus the dark part of the room. Cameras are still a little bit worse than the human eye in that way. And so they're always trying to push that limit of what they can do. It's kind of like how people talk about animation. If you're watching Pixar, if you watch the difference between Incredibles 1 and Incredibles 2, the animation is wildly different. And we're like, why do we care? Why do you have to make the hair on his head look more realistic if it's an animated movie? It's about advancing the technology, because there's going to be offshoots of what is going to be possible later on with the technology. And so that sort of stuff is always exciting from the technological standpoint. But iPhones replacing cinema cameras, people are always going to want the best possible image because it's interesting. And so the smaller ones will always be worse than the bigger ones. And that's just the way it's going to be. But in terms of what it opens up, more people shooting more stuff, I think it's a very interesting world, especially with AI and stuff like that, where maybe you don't even need the camera anymore. It's just whatever your idea is, it can be placed on screen, and it just becomes a marketplace of full ideas and less about skill.
Yeah, I was curious what your thought on the trends, because I know like AI is a big thing right now. Smaller creators through like social media is becoming a thing. Is there any trends you see that like are interesting, or like even like maybe this opens up again for smaller filmmakers or director opportunities because now you can produce more with a lower overall budget? Like what kind of trends do you see that are really exciting?
The trends are, I mean, the real on the ground trend is that I see more and more people using AI every day. What the result is still to be seen exactly what that means. But my prediction, which I think is pretty solid, is that it will just be more people creating more things and more ideas out there. And I don't know if it means it's a threat to any one thing. I think it just means the world of video entertainment grows, because the analogy I use is YouTube and the advent of iPhone or handheld consumer video cameras. That made everybody into a filmmaker. If you there's the YouTube channels that are just mechanics that have millions of subscribers, and they figured out how to use a video camera and make their own television show. And that's what people want. That became a valuable thing to them to make. Where just like the world, there was all these barriers of being able to make an interesting TV show just got obliterated with technology. You had distribution, you had the technology cheap and available, and then people there's a little bit of a learning curve to use it. That was the only barrier. You had to learn how to edit, and maybe get somebody to help you with that stuff. But you could be a YouTuber and people make money doing that every single day. Now it seems like that's going to get wiped out. Where now anybody who can type into computer system will be able to create what they're looking for if it continues to get better and better and better. And that's what you're seeing right now, where the easiest things that the AI video prompts can make are ideas for skits. And that's another thing with like even something like TikTok. I feel like the TikTok skits and the comedians on there, that's almost replaced SNL, where someone has an idea for some funny, goofy thing, they can just put it on there right now. They can be there with their friend, capture it, put it on, and it can be the best idea will win. It will float to the top. And so there's a lot of garbage that's floating around it. But now that person that may have never gotten a chance to audition for SNL can be a big star making TikToks because they have the best ideas. And I think now all you have to have is fingertips. And if you have the best idea, it can now win, where you can put, a cop badge cam video of Abraham Lincoln in a go-kart, like those are the things that I'm seeing these days. And like, that's a funny idea. That's an interesting idea. And so that's what people are now making. And now it's about ideas, which is why I'm trying to get into the idea marketplace rather than the camera operator marketplace.
Yeah. I know we're running up on time here, but one question I had, so like when you're creating something and like when you're making a short film and you want to become a director, is it a tough balance of like, you want to protect your idea, you have something that you want to get out in the world, and I imagine just the filmmaking process, there's a lot of people involved. There's probably script writers, cameramen, all this stuff, and like they would probably have suggestions that like, for how to do things. How do you balance that? Because like it's one of those things where like sometimes I think design by committee just results in a bland project. It's like everyone would get vanilla ice cream if you asked everyone what to do. But I imagine there are people with smart ideas. Then you see like I think George Lucas, you could tell like stopped listening to people, and then it got like worse. So it's like, how do you balance that when you're like making something that's purely creative that you're going to put out in the world?
It's tough, and it's different for every single thing. I think it's different for every single person. Like there's a lot of different directors you hear that go about making their stuff in a bunch of different ways. And some people want that control so that they can say, this is really my thing. This is my product. It's my hand that painted this picture, and it wasn't guided by anything else. And there's something that's always interesting to that. It's especially interesting to film people when you hear that, like they've used this term auteur filmmakers that are like, this is their thing. They are the author fully of this film. And a lot of times those things to me feel more cohesive, because I think you're right, the design by committee thing can get in the way, but sometimes not. Sometimes that's just people's ego. And to weigh the difference between auteur, filmmaker, and jerk, that line can get pretty blurry pretty quickly. But there's other people that you hear of, like Ron Howard, that are just the nicest people. And I've heard him say things like, it's just so much easier when people might have an idea or something like that. If it's not going to make that big of a difference in terms of how the movie or the scene is going to turn out, just give it to them. Because because giving them one thing or some small thing is going to make them so much more likely to take the next no easier, where they're just like, oh, you gave them one thing and the next thing, I don't think so. Then they're like, oh, that's fine. Well, at least I got the one. And there is something to the dynamics on set that cannot be overlooked, which is it takes so much to rally people to work these long days and do something that in the end, it's really just your name that's going to be on it. That is the number one responsibility for, like, this is your film. To rally everybody to say, we're going to get behind you today. We're excited for you to be the captain of this ship. That's a whole task in and of itself. That's one of the main components of like running any sort of a big operation, is being the leader and having people like that fact that you're the leader. And so giving up on those things, that's me personally, from my personal temperament and stuff like that. I think those are the pathways that I take. I find it a hard time. You're going to fight way harder of a battle trying to have absolute control over everything, not just from a practical standpoint, but I think it's going to hurt you in the end, because you're going to have less movie that you made at the end of the day, because you're just going to get choked by the people around you if they don't like you and they're not excited about making this project with you.
Yeah, it sounds simple, but there's a million different little factors going into actually getting something creative made. As we wrap up here, we do want to give you a chance to promote your work. Where can people follow you, learn more?
Oh, that's a good question. I do have a website, maybe you can link it because I have forgotten the link as well. But
We
it shows
will
some.
add that.
It's a short portfolio of stuff that it includes my short and another short that I worked on as cinematographer with my friend, and a couple other great things. I started to do some commercial work this year as well. There's a couple spec commercials on there, one for Under Armour, one for Canada Goose. Just sometimes they're just visual exercises for me, and then just because of like cameras and stuff like that. And then the short is kind of my first dive into a story that I thought would be interesting to shoot and would be aesthetically pleasing to the audience. So go ahead and click that link that will be under the description soon.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thank you so much for coming on. It was great to chat and learn about it, and looking forward to, when you get that next short out or the full length movie, we'll be there.
Okay, yeah, that's when I really want to come on to promote the thing that's going to be the big thing. Yeah,
let's do it.
Okay.